The second order is that you find today's daf that a Balmum Kohen was not allowed to do the avodah, but a Balmum Levi was allowed to do the avodah. And at first glance, it's tzarich. What's the difference? Why is it that a Kohen Balmum is disqualified from doing the avodah, but Levi Balmum sounds like even lechatchila is allowed to do the avodah? And the truth is, if you think about it, why is a Kohen Balmum not allowed to do the avodah? So it's based on the idea of hakriveu no lefecha secha, hayirtzecha, hayisa panecha, the barbanel, on this pasuk, shtosu, this inyan, this pasuk meaning the pasuk in Parashas Emor that talks about a Kohen Balmum not being allowed to do the avodah. It's based on that inyan. So the Kohen did the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, the Levi also did the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Wasn't mamish the same avodah, but there's no question he's serving Hashem. And if that's the case, if there's an idea of hakriveu no lefecha secha regarding the Kohen, what's the pshat? That when it comes to the Levi, you don't find this idea. But I think there's a pasha to Tzushta, to this inyan. That is a classic Meshech Chachma. So Baruch Hashem, we're on a good roll with the Meshech Chachmas. And here's another classic. This is in Parshas Bamidbar. It's Perek Gimel. It's pasuk Memhe. Ramei Simcha starts Kedarka, which is why we're referring to this as a classic Meshech Chachma. Da. The Hada Amru bePerek Bnei Yoir. This the Chazal said in Perek Bnei Yoir. Besechtes Megillah Daf Chav Vav Amud Beis. The Tashmish Kedusha Kadosh. The Tashmish the Tashmish Loi. Yotzo Lehem Lo Daiti Midin Torah. So we know there's an idea of Tashmishay Kedusha are Nikbarim, right? They have a certain level of Kedusha. Tashmishay Mitzvah is rockin'. They don't have that same level of Kedusha. But the Gemara makes a distinction. The Gemara says, even when it comes to Tashmishay Kedusha, Tashmish Kedusha has Kedusha. But Tashmish, the Tashmish, that already does not have any Kedusha. What does that mean? Anything that facilitates Kedusha. So for example, the Gartel, the mitpachas that's put around the Sefer Torah, is servicing, it's facilitating the Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah is Kedusha. This is Tashmish Kedusha. That has a level of Kedusha. But let's say the Aron Kodesh maybe where you put the Sefer Torah in, or if there was another tishtach that you would put the Sefer Torah when it's already garbed on top of, that other tishtach would be a Tashmish to Tashmish, and that already wouldn't have Kodesh. Now again, what I just said is not halacha l'maisa. Go through the sugya Masechtas Megillah. The Gemara gives examples of what is, what isn't. Rava said, I used to think this, then I chop that. But the bottom line is, there's an idea of a tashmish to kedusha. What makes direct contact with the kedusha, that is considered kaddish. But tashmish, something that's only making contact with something that makes contact, that already is not considered kaddish. Says Ramei Simcha, I hold that the kohanim you find were referred to as kedoshim. Ukedoshim yiyu v'lo yechalu. The whole Parshas Emor refers to the kohanim as being kedoshim. He said, I never found a pasuk anywhere that refers to the Leviim as being kedoshim. Kohanim kedoshim. V'kidashtoi, right? That's a halacha that you have when it comes to a kohen. He said, I never found a pasuk anywhere that referred to Levi as being more kaddish than the rest of Klal Yisrael. Within Levi, the kohanim have more kedusha, but that the Levi should have more kedusha than Klal Yisrael, that's something I never found. And you know what I think the Nakud is? Says Ramei Simcha. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's because what's the job of the kohen? The job of the kohen is to be mishamish HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the job of the Levi? The job of the Levi, if you look in the Psukim, just to read two Psukim. This is in Parshas Bamidbar, Perek Gimel Pasuk Tes. V'nosato es haleviim la'aharoinu levanov. Nesunim heimaloi me'ez b'nei Yisrael. The job of the Levi is to service the Kohen. Here's another pasuk. This is in Parshas Ba'aloischa, Perek Ches Pasuk Yotes. V'etno es haleviim nesunim la'aharoinu levanov mitoich b'nei Yisrael lavid es avodas b'nei Yisrael ba'yomayot v'chulu v'chulu. Zok Simcha, the job of the Kohen was to serve Hashem. The job of the Levi was to serve the Kohen. He was given to the Kohen as an Ezek Kenegdoi to help him and to assist him to do what he's trying to do. The Kohen is Tashmish the Kedusha. He's there, he's being Meshamish B'Kedusha. And that's why Kedoshim Yiyu. And that's why V'Kidashto, Choldovish B'Kedusha, he always has a Kedima. Because he himself is Kodesh. What gives him his Kedusha? He's Tashmish the Kedusha. Oh, but the Levi is Tashmish the Tashmish. Because his job is not to directly serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's there to serve the Kohen who's serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is he connected to the Kedusha? Yes. Does he have a nexus to the Kedusha? Yes. But he's one step removed. He's not Tashmish the Kedusha. He's Tashmish did Tashmish. He's there to help the Kohen, whose job is to go and help HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's for that reason, says Ramei Simcha, the Kohen had Kedusha and the Levi didn't have Kedusha. He said that's the Oimik. The Had Amru Perik B'nei Yair the Tashmish Kedusha Kadosh v'Tashmish Tashmish Lo Yotza Lo Yotzalam L'Daiti Midin Torah. You want to know which Dait in Torah? This diuk that you find that the Kohen is considered Kedoshim, as opposed to you don't find the Levi is, it's because the Kohen is Tashmish the Kedusha, as opposed to the Levi you don't find anyone. It's a long piece, Ayin Sham. But he says you could understand a lot of the differences that you find between the Kohanim and the Leviim. For example, the Kohen, his matnas kahuna is off limits. It has kedusha, right? Truma, Azar that eats it is Chai Misa B'dei Shamayim, Bikurim, Chala. All his matnas kahuna, Azar is not allowed to eat. Meiser Rishon, Azar is allowed to eat. He said, what's the oimik? The oimik is because being that the Kohen is Uktoishim Yiyu, he's Tashmish the kedusha. So Zok there, it's a davar nachain to assume that his matanos would have that level of kedusha as well. But the Levi who's Tashmish did Tashmish, well, you don't find that he has that kedusha. So it's for that reason his matnas kahuna is not going to have it either. And Ramei Simcha says, even Rameir, whose sheet that we know in Shas is that Meiser Rishon is Asal Azarim, but it's not Mitzad Kedusha. You know it's not Mitzad Kedusha? Because even Rameir holds that a Levi is allowed to eat Meiser Rishon B'tumah. And if it was Kaddish, you wouldn't be allowed to eat a B'tumah. So what's the Vard? So he says, the talking the Vard is that just like Azar was not allowed to do the Avodah of the Levi, forget about Kedusha. He wasn't allowed to do the Avodah. So too, his matnas Leviah is also going to be Asur B'Achila. But it's not Mitzad Kedusha. You know what the Raya is? From the fact that it's something that's Nachal B'tumah. Ramei Simcha says that's the reason that a Kohenes, that Zinsa, is Asur to eat Truma. But a Leviah, that Zinsa, is allowed to continue to eat Meiser. It's because the whole parasha of Truma nemsach from the Kedusha. So to the extent that she was Mezana, she was Mechala her Kedusha, she's off limits. The Levi was never a sugi of Kedusha. That's not what it is. He's Tashmish to Tashmish anyway. It's just he was Mufdal. And as a result, this is something he's going to have. That's the beer. The emes is, I think it's Kamat Mefurish. We started today's daf. We began the introduction with the words of the Rambam, Perik Gimel, Alach Aleph, Hilchos Klei HaMikdash. Zera Levi kuloi muvdol la'avodas HaMikdash. Shenema ba'isa hi hivdol Hashem es shevet HaLevi. The Rambam in Perik Daled of Hilchos Klei HaMikdash talks about another Havdalah, the Havdalah of the Kohanim. The Rambam says HaKohanim huvdalu michlal HaLeviim. La'avodas hakorbanos shenemar vayibadeh laharon lahakdishoy kodesh kadashim. By the Havdalah of the Levi doesn't say one word about kedusha, but by the Havdalah of the Kohen, HaKohanim huvdalu michlal haLeviim. What's the makar? Vayibadeh laharon lahakdishoy kodesh kadashim. It's because the cheftza of the Havdalah of the Levi is not l'kedusha. It's for certain jobs: shmiras hamikdash, avodas hamasa, shayarim, mishayrim. He gets matanis for this, etc., etc. But the Kohen, the Havdalah shebesoicha Havdalah, that was a Havdalah for kedusha, and that's why he is taka referred to as Uktoishim Yiyu. That's why you find the inyan of the Kiddashtoi, etc., etc. But the bottom line is, I think I'll pee this Ramei Simcha, it's Pashat. The inyan of Hakriveu Nolofecha Secha is that if you're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu direct, so then there's an inyan of Hakriveu Nolofecha Secha. The Kohen who's Tashmish the Kedusha said there was a Kpedi, couldn't be a Balmum. But the Levi who's only Tashmish the Tashmish, he works for the Kohen. So it's artig that the Kohen's Gaba, his Ezek Kenegdo is a Balmum. How does that start? He's Nesunin Laharin Zakar Meir Simcha. He's only a Tashmish the Tashmish. Could be over there. There's no Kpeda for the Hakriveu Nolofecha Secha. Maybe that's the Geder Advarim, why you find that a Mum passes when it comes to a Kohen as opposed to a Levi. And as we like to say, maybe it's even Pashat.